one of the big changes we have to do when we're trying to become more agile as a team and as a business is we have to try and move decisions as close to the actual work being done and the need for decisions to be made as we can. And this necessitates accountabilities being moved closer to those decisions, to the people making the decisions each day. But accountability and blame are closely related, and chances are in your organizations and team, and maybe even internally with yourself as well, we are more inclined towards blame. Blame is easier, it's faster, comes more readily to us. And we need to try and move from having a blame culture to an accountability culture. We need to move from pointing fingers in a way to understanding and taking ownership. And the big question then is, why is blame so bad? Well, blame is usually reactionary, it's quick, it's emotional, and it's really just about trying to shift a sense of shame and guilt from yourself to someone else. It's a way to try and say, this is not something I need to worry about. Someone else made a mistake and they should own it. It's their fault. So they should feel sorry, kind of thing. You're trying to shift it to someone else to own and feel bad for, which doesn't solve the problem, first and foremost. And secondly, we're just moving the issue around, right? Accountability is harder, it's more vulnerable, and it requires a lot of courage to get started with, which is why courage is one of the Scrum values, right? It's a very important thing. But vulnerability is not only, and it's vulnerable not only because accountability is about holding other people accountable, it's actually about you holding yourself and others accountable. And sometimes it's holding others accountable for how you feel or for something they did, how it impacted other things, and holding ourselves accountable for how we made other people feel or the impact or results of any of our work and what happened as a result of that. Or reality is sometimes what didn't happen as a result of something not occurring. So blame is essentially trying to push it onto someone else, and accountability is taking it within yourself and kind of wrestling with it and figuring it out and focusing on how we're going to resolve it instead of just pushing it away and getting comfortable with the discomfort of accountability, because it is uncomfortable. That's the reality. So how can we do this? How can we move from blame to accountability? Well, one, it's not easy. That's the first thing. It's going to take time. But the first action, and it sounds silly, I know, but it's modeling the Scrum values. They are there for a reason. They are very, very powerful. Modeling the Scrum values will build trust for those people around you. And the Scrum values, as I'm sure you all know by now, focus, openness, courage, commitment, and respect. Now, there may be some of these that you struggle with, and that's okay. Part of it is going to be fake it till you make it. If you practice courage, if you pretend you're courageous for long enough, well, wouldn't you know it, you're being courageous. I like to say that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the acknowledging of fear and doing it anyway, right? It's a very good way of looking at it. You're not going to feel suddenly not uncomfortable with these things. You're always going to be uncomfortable. It's about doing them anyway. So modeling the Scrum values and using that as a way to continually build trust, which means you can feel more comfortable, have the courage to take on accountability for yourself, and the people around you will feel the same. Because if you model the Scrum values, other people will too. The second thing to do would be moving towards systemic thinking. Systems thinking is a larger idea in general, but essentially it's around not focusing on people as much as the system we are operating within. And it's helpful for all kinds of things, but when we're moving to a accountability view versus a blame view, when we use blame, it tends to be more people-focused, more emotional, more human-centric. If we move to a systems view and think about how can I own this part of the system and enable it to function better, and when things do fall between the cracks, when there is an issue and we need to hold ourselves or someone else accountable, instead of pointing to them as a bad human being somehow, and that they should feel bad, instead we look at it from the point of view of what went wrong in this system? What can we do together to make something visible, repair it, or improve it together to make sure this might not happen again in the future? And with the Scrum values and that systemic thinking, you're going to have a much better time of it, right? You're going to be able to be more focused, committed, you're going to have the courage to ask questions, respect for each other as humans and professionals, and have that systemic view of it's not the person, it's the interactions and systems around the people that impact how we act together. And how can we change those things so we can all have better knowledge and act better accordingly. The third thing is practice. It's a cop-out answer perhaps, but practice makes better. Right? It doesn't always make perfect. We're never going to be perfect with our accountability. That's the reality. But we can get better at it. And start small. Start with small things to hold yourself and others to account for, and keep practicing it. And what you will notice by doing that is, 1, the world didn't end. 2, you didn't come to harm. And 3, you got much better quality outcomes as a result of it. And if you keep practicing a little bit, eventually you'll be able to get to larger issues and larger things to hold each other accountable for. Before you know it, you're practicing the 3 main Scrum accountabilities perfectly and holding each other accountable as well. It'll take time, but it's certainly doable. I've been there myself. It's a daily struggle. Even now, after a decade of this, it'll be a daily struggle for you too. But if you put in the work, you're vulnerable, you're courageous, you can certainly get there. So the summary then, Scrum values, model them, encourage others to do the same. Systemic thinking, focus on the system, not the people, right? It's not bad people, it's a bad system. How do we fix the system? And third, practice accountability. Practice that vulnerability, starting small, and then build up until you get to where you want to be. And that's it. All right. Thank you very much for watching. And if you like what you saw and you want to hear more about what I've got to say in the future on similar questions, or if you have a question yourself, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. You can also email me at oscar.styf@pragmaticshift.com. Please do like the video, share it with others if you think they might benefit from it, or follow my profile to see stuff as they come out as well. And I would love to be your Scrum trainer. So please find my content on pragmaticshift.com. You can find the courses I've scheduled for the year, or on scrum.org.com as well. Look forward to seeing you in my classroom soon.